2, 1.
New York, NY. LaunchPod starts now.
Welcome to the New York LaunchPod, a podcast highlighting new startups, businesses, and openings in the New York City area. This is our first episode, and I'm very pleased to be joined in studio with Evan Hammer, the founder of Smart Host. And when I first read about the idea, it just blew me away. I'm really excited to have him on. Evan, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Hal. Thanks for having me.
So, in your own words, what is Smart Host?
We price vacation rentals. So if you are an owner with a single property, or if you're a manager with 100 units, we tell you how much to charge. And it's not about it giving you the right base rate. It's about that every night should be a different price, and we should update those prices as market conditions change. So if you were to book a hotel room, you'd expect, if you booked on October 4th or October 5th, that there'd be different rates. And as you approach the date, the rates would change. None of that technology exists for the vacation rental industry. The vacation rental industry is $100 billion a year, and it doesn't have anywhere near the level of sophistication around pricing that the hotel industry has. So that's what we're hoping to change.
So what are people doing now for pricing?
Sure. So let's say you're an owner that has a place in Panama City Beach, or if you're a manager that has 100 units in Park City, Utah. Typically, either the owner, when you get the place, will say, hey, we rented this out before at this price, or you'll take a look at some of your competitive listings. So you'll look at some, if you have a 2-bedroom house in Park City, Utah, you look at other 2-bedroom houses that are close by, try to evaluate the pictures to see which ones are similar to yours, and then kind of match their price. Often that happens once a year, once every 2 years. It's a pretty static market when it comes to pricing currently.
Why do you think it is a static market?
A lot of the folks who are doing pricing aren't data scientists, right? Like, think about all the owners. Your average owner is renting out their place, but isn't putting that much time into it. The managers, they typically do know what they're doing. They have a sense of the market, but their primary responsibilities are finding new guests, managing the place, making sure that some of the operational things are covered, and making sure your guests have a great experience. So it's really a hospitality layer more than kind of a big data layer on top of their businesses.
How much do vacation rentals vary right now?
We did one study just in New York, and we looked at the difference between this past fall New York City hotels and New York City short-term rentals, primarily on Airbnb. And we found a lot of the cities actually vary more than the vacation rental spots, so this is probably on the higher side. September and October this year, New York City hotel prices vary day to day by 124%. Vacation rentals, 18%. We're going to be doing some other studies for other places around, but that's just the variance in New York City over a 60-day period this past fall.
And were you able to tell, at least in New York City, what caused that variance?
Variance is caused by changes in demand. It's one of those interesting things with hotels that the supply is fixed, right? So it comes down to there being conferences, certain weekends when people want to come to New York, the New York City Marathon. These things vary hotel prices quite significantly. We found with Airbnb, with HomeAway, with FlipKey, there are folks who know about all these little things, but most folks don't. Most of the time, hotels make changes, and your vacation rental folks don't.
So how did you come up with this idea? Were you doing a rental yourself and thinking, I could be paying a lot more for this, or I could be paying a lot less for this?
No, it's interesting. When we came up with the idea, it was actually part of this mobile hackathon called Startup Bus. So Startup Bus is a competition where you get on a bus, you spend 3 days on the bus meeting people, building a company, then you arrive in San Antonio, Texas. There have been 6 other buses, so we're on the bus from New York, but there's buses coming from Mexico City, Florida, SF. All these buses have in total about 40 teams. You get down there, there's 2 days of pitching, and you compete on your ideas. So when you get on the bus, in our case, New York, I think it was Sunday morning, almost a year ago to the day. It was actually yesterday, a year ago to the day. You get on the bus, you say, hey, my name's Evan Hammer. I'm a Python engineer. I just stopped working on an outsourcing company, and I'm looking to code for a few days. And somebody else got up and said, hey, I was trying to rent out my place on Airbnb while I was on this hackathon, and it was really hard to figure out pricing. It just so happened that I was planning to leave New York at that point and spend a year spending every single month in a different location. And so I went up to him and said, hey, I'm actually kind of your target user here in a certain sense, not as on the host side, but on the traveler side, and this is a really fascinating area to me, especially around the data portion of it. We got a few other folks involved, and we had a team going down to Texas working on building a pricing algorithm. Got down there, ended up winning the competition, and deciding to work on it full time. So it's kind of a wild, tumultuous start to a company, but we had a really magical team dynamic, and we thought we were onto something. Of course, we still do.
So how many people are on your team?
There's 3 of us right now as co-founders. On the startup bus, there were 5 of us, but as you can imagine, not everybody is ready to quit their jobs and start working at a company the next week.
So you spend 3 days on this bus, and how far, at least in terms of developing, did you get?
By the finals, which we started on a Sunday, I think the finals were Thursday morning. By the finals, we had built an Android app that was live in the Google Play Store. We had scraped Airbnb, just in New York. And if you were in New York, you could put in an address, and you could put in the number of bedrooms, how many guests you had, and if you're renting out the entire place or just like a shared room, kind of the property type. And from there, we could give you a price recommendation, and we could cast it onto a calendar to show you how that would change over time. Also, at that point, you could click update and actually update your Airbnb listing live. So that's what we built on the bus in 3 days.
Were you on the bus the entire time? Did the bus stop? Tell me more about that.
Yeah, so every night it did stop in a hotel. The first leg was down to Atlanta, Georgia. So that's New York to Atlanta. The next leg was to Little Rock, Arkansas. And that was crazy because there was some freak ice storm that night. And we got stuck on the highway for like 5 hours. And people were knocking on the door because we were in a bus, to use a restroom. And it was, we didn't get to the hotel until 3 or 4 in the morning, I don't think. And then the next leg brought us down to San Antonio, where we stayed in a hotel the night before the first pitches. And we all stayed up straight through the night, coding, working on the pitch, just getting ready to go the next morning.
And then what made you think this is something I should continue with?
The prime thing was the team dynamic coming out of the bus. So, there were 5 of us on the bus. When we talked about if anybody wanted to go forward, 3 of us were interested in working on it. And I think we felt that there was a really magical chemistry. I know it sounds kind of hokey, but, I'm a software engineer, really interested in product design. One of my partners is a guy named Dave Redding. He's also a software engineer, had worked at a company called Touch Lab as an Android developer. And when we were on the bus, it was the kind of thing where we'd say, hey, how long is it going to take to build this feature? 4 or 5 hours? And he'd be like, 20 minutes. And then he'd just get it done. So he really has this incredible, not just work ethic, but almost supernatural ability to get things done. And then there's Nick Persico is the other part of this trio. And he's very much, he also codes actually, but he's very much comes not from the software engineering background, but as a salesperson. So he had joined a company called Elastic that was a Salesforce on demand. And that meant he would go into companies that didn't know how to sell. He'd set up their lead gen channel, make sure the customer segment worked, make sure the whole funnel converted well, hire their first few salespeople and hand it off to them. So he has this very tactical sales experience with building sales teams. So I think we all felt like when you're on the bus, one of the nice things, it's super high pressure. Everybody just has to get stuff done. And the fact that we could all just work ahead and then reconvene 2 or 3 hours later, and we'd all have helped each other out as opposed to have stepped on each other's toes. I think we all felt there was this real natural chemistry that really drove the desire to work forward.
So you get off the bus, you've developed the app, and then how long until everyone says, I'm going to quit my job and go with this full time?
The day we met was March 2nd. That's when we got on the bus. March 18th was the day we decided to start the company.
And everyone quit their jobs? 3
of the 5 of us were like, we're in, let's do this. The other 2 folks still have their jobs, and they've been very supportive. And we didn't quit that day. We kind of planned it out. I know we all had projects we were working on. I just started doing some consulting work where I was the only engineer, so I needed to find a replacement team. Nick was a VP of operations at a company, so he needed to wind that down. Dave Redding was working on projects as well here in New York. So it was the game plan was basically beginning to middle of June was when we were going to come on full time. And in the interim, we ended up getting to Techstars in Austin. So then we headed down to Austin, and we were there for the whole summer.
And so do the other 2 still have a stake in the company at all?
We decided when we got off the bus that we'd take 3% of the company and split it between the 5 of us. And then the other 97% would be split between whoever decided to actually work on the company. So they still have that bit of equity.
Where are you based out of now?
So we're here in New York. I've been still moving around to different apartments every month in Brooklyn, Dave's actually in Jersey City, and Nick lives in Brooklyn too. Technically our company address is in Brooklyn, but we've been working at a couple co-working spaces here in Manhattan the last few months.
So you all meet every day and co-work together, or you work from your home?
It really varies. We have this mindset that people can work in different places, but being together is really important. So, for example, January and February, we were at this co-working space called District, which is up near the Ace Hotel at 29th and Broadway. And every day we went in. I would say probably once every 2 weeks, each person would work from home. It kind of depends on your need to get into that alone zone and just kind of buckle down. March, we're all traveling a bit. So we actually don't have an office space for March.
Are you guys earning money at this point? What's the revenue look like?
Yeah, so I don't think I want to say our revenue numbers quite yet, but we have, I'd say, quite a few vacation rental managers on board, and what it looks like for them is they sign up with a handful of their properties to start. It's $10 and $20 per property per month, and we give them dynamic pricing, and they sign in. Check out the pricing calendar. Our current product is very much focused around highs and lows. So on a specific month, we'll say, hey, these are 3 nights that are in high demand. You want to raise your price. And these are 3 nights that are in low demand. You want to lower your price if you're going to get booked. And so, some folks price nightly, some folks price weekly. But having those nights allows them to see what we're recommending, why we're recommending it, and then still make intelligent decisions. These are managers who do know what they've booked at previously.
So what's the feedback been from the property owners and managers?
Yeah, we really have been focusing on the manager segment, and the feedback has been pretty incredible. Folks have said, hey, there's a few nights I was having trouble getting booked, and then you showed me that those are actually low-demand nights. We've had folks say, hey, I've come on, and just highlighting these few nights that are in high demand has made a difference. I've been able to change my pricing and gotten booked at a faster rate. So, we're going to probably put together a report over the next couple months that kind of lays out exactly what that lift has been for our managers. So right now it's pretty anecdotal, but folks have also been critical, which I think's super interesting. And this is back a little bit. We first onboarded our first customers in November, and for our pricing to work well, we have to build a comp set of similar properties to analyze those properties and how they're booking. That's one of our key mechanics. So we built a comp set based on the number of bedrooms, occupancy, and location. And we showed them to our first customers and said, hey, I know we're not totally live yet, but take a look at this. What do you think? And folks said, hey, but 70% of these are good, but 30% of them kind of suck. And we got really nervous. We're like, well, if we can't automatically build these comp sets, how are we going to have a company? It was one of those moments. And one customer said, why are you letting me remove all the properties that aren't good? And we realized, on one hand, we could aggregate some of the quantifiable data. On the other hand, we needed to have our local market experts, our customers, as a vital input into that thought process. We said, let's just have them thumbs down all the properties that are bad, and that way, we can make sure that humans who know the market are part of this, and are making sure that our comp sets are high quality.
The comp set is computer generated. It's all based off of an algorithm.
You got it.
What are the inputs? How will you factor what the price should be?
We take a look at your booking history. We build a competitive set of properties near you that are similar to yours. And we look at quantitative stuff like number of bedrooms and location, but also qualitative stuff like how do the photos look? Does this room look cozy or claustrophobic? We build this comp set with you as the local market expert. And once we understand your competition, we can look at availability. We can look at what prices they're getting booked for on specific dates, nearby events, nearby hotel rates. Eventually, we'd like to even look at demand side stuff, like how many searches on Google are happening for that location on those dates on Expedia.
When you develop this comp set, where are you getting the data from? Is it from other sites?
Yeah, so there's really 2 components to the comp sets. We're scraping sites all over the web to get listings, and then we also look to our customers. I think our customers, primarily right now vacation rental managers, have the most important data. So it's not just a comp set, but it's knowing when these properties are actually getting booked.
So how has the algorithm changed over time? What have you really learned based off of your experience?
So the biggest change is going from taking a look at your comp set and trying to sort of average what you're similar to, which is very supply-side oriented, right? Saying folks are listing it for this, to trying to predict what the outcomes are going to be and saying, at this price, we think this is the chance you'll get booked. That's probably the biggest change in the algorithm.
Are you a separate standalone app? What are you exactly? You provide recommendations. How does the user get?
Yeah, I would say we are a data analytics tool for residential rentals right now, focusing on vacation rental pricing. And let's say you have 20 properties in the Fort Lauderdale area in Florida. Sign up for SmartHost. We give you a pricing calendar, and right now you take those price recommendations and you put them into your property management system. There's a whole bunch of them, and from there they go out to your website. They're the price you see when somebody calls in and asks, and it also gets pushed out usually to the marketplaces.
So people sign up through your website?
Yeah, so if you go to smarthost.me, that's a URL. You can sign up if you're an owner or you're a manager or you're just a host on Airbnb, and we can ingest your property and give some price recommendations.
So I read recently that Airbnb is getting a $20 billion valuation by investors.
I read something like that too.
What's to stop a giant like them or another website from entering into your sphere?
So I think there's sort of two questions there. What's to stop one of those marketplaces from doing pricing? And then what's to stop somebody else from competing with us in the long run? So on the marketplace side, what we say is that Airbnb, HomeAway, FlipKey, their primary customer is the traveler, right? They're trying to compete with hotels to bring more travelers to their sites. And because of that, they're trying to match travelers and hosts together to create value, to create these transactions. But there are certain situations where the hosts and the traveler's interests are not aligned. Pricing happens to be one of them. For example, we often recommend to a host that you raise your price above market because you won't get booked now, you'll get booked later. I think the kind of maxim is you don't want to be the first person booked. You want to be the last person booked because you'll get the highest price. That's not always true. It depends on the market, but that's sort of a general curve that we respond to. Now, if you imagine HomeAway giving a pricing revenue maximization algorithm to all their hosts at once, I mean, all their hosts would start raising their prices above market so they can make more money later. And if this was found out by their travelers, I mean, it would be not necessarily a scandal, but it'd be terrible for their brand. So, our view is that HomeAway and Airbnb really don't want to maximize revenue for the hosts if it's going to make the travelers suspicious of their intentions, that the travelers are the ones they're really trying to please. At the same time, they do want their hosts to price well, right? Because it's more transactions for everybody. So I think that really lends their value or our value here, right? It says that, hey, this is a great partnership for them, but if it was their brand doing it, they'd have to answer to their travelers.
But how bad would it be for Airbnb or HomeAway to recommend the dynamic pricing anyway or have people know about it? I mean, like you said, we accept it for airfare and hotels. Why not accept it for vacation rentals or short-term rentals?
Right. I think it has to do a little bit with the brand and what the focus is on. So when you think about Airbnb, right, they're competing with hotels, and they're trying to build a brand that a traveler can rely on, and specifically rely on not to be a hotel, right? People don't stay at an Airbnb or a vacation rental to have the hotel experience. It's supposed to be personal. It's supposed to be somebody's property. And the idea that, now it's just going to be as expensive as a hotel, is something that people have noticed a trend where these things are getting more expensive and a concern. So I think it really comes with how they differentiate themselves from hotels and make themselves a more attractive option. That it's really just, if they were doing revenue maximization for the hosts, it would really fight against the direction they're pushing their brand.
So what's the ultimate goal for your company?
There's a lot of ultimate goals. I think, just speaking personally for a second, I think real estate data is so much worse than it should be. If you're a tenant and you're looking for an apartment, you have to go check out 20 places, 30 places in New York. Even the brokers renting out places, they often don't know when things have been booked. They're showing places that have already been rented out. I mean, think about it. If you look around the room we're in, how can you accurately describe what it'd be like to rent this office space in such detail that you can put it online and somebody can see that description and they don't have to visit the place, right? Right now, real estate data is of poor quality, and that means you have to physically go to a place to find out what it's going to be. And I think it'd be amazing if real estate data online was of such good quality that you could make decisions online. And you see these short-term rental places, with HomeAway and Airbnb, and people are making decisions online They are trusting that listing, that virtual listing, as a representation of the property. And you can understand why that's acceptable, because they're only there for 3 days or a week or 2 weeks. If you're actually going to rent out an office space or live in a home or buy a home, you want to be there. But if we could make real estate data of such high quality that all those types of decisions could be made virtually, I think that would transform how real estate works. That's what's important to me. I think Smart Host, clearly started the vacation rental side of it, but we're really interested in increasing the quality of the data. And we think it's not just about the description of an individual property, but it's about understanding how properties are related to each other. And that gives you context, because if you're familiar with one property, and then you know which properties are similar to it, you then can be familiar with the other ones. And that's the route we're taking to increase the quality of real estate data and hopefully bring forth a whole bunch of applications on that better quality data.
And how can people find out more about you?
Yeah, so they can go to our website. It's smarthost.me. We don't have the .com yet. We will. If you search for Smart Host online, we'll be the first search result also. And pretty active. If you follow us on Twitter, it's @SmartHost. We talk a lot. So if you're interested in this kind of thing and thinking through these problems, you can find out kind of where our heads are at that way.
I think big things are in store for Smart Host. I think it's an amazing idea. And Evan, thanks for being our first guest on the New York Launch Pod and sharing your time with us.
Hal, thank you for having me. I really do appreciate it. I'm always excited to talk about Smart Host. I'm excited about where we're going.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the New York Launch Pod. For more information, please visit nylaunchpod.com.